Every story is unique because we're all very different, and everyone has a story. And I think everybody should tell their story so we can learn from their life lessons. So today I'm going to share with you that how my story unfolded and made me who I am. I started from very humble beginning, from a small business family and in a small town. And I really started working with my dad and then with my brother who have their own, retail business. And I tell you, the lessons I learned in the retail business still help me today. I even though I have gone through two different business schools and two different engineering schools, but I tell you that the lessons I learned in real life, you know, dealing with small business challenges and customers, face to face, that I have not learned in any university or any other institution. And those lessons really helped me in pursuing my education as well as my professional career and now as a businessman. So I started as a helper to my dad, and then like a salesman for my brother, and then eventually I end up being managing his business on part time while I was going to school part time, and that also actually helped me how to do multitasking. Still being a full time student, and I'm talking about high school. I'm not talking about college. So all through my primary to high school, I was full-time student and part-time businessman working for my dad or for my brother. And I learned a lot of lessons, a lot of very valuable understanding that how to understand and interact with the customer and with the supplier. But especially, I was intrigued by some of the lessons I learned from my brother, that how to really interact with the customer, how to understand their psyche, how to understand what they're not saying, how to really read the body language and their background, their culture. A lot of those things I learned through interacting with them and through interacting with my brother. And I must tell you that he used to quiz me that what do you think, what background they have, what culture they have, what was their real demand, and what did we offer them, all those type of good things. So all these little things in your life, you might be thinking they are small things and not paying attention, but they're all really becoming the building blocks of your mindset. And then I was in seventh grade when I started working with a charity called Organization for Serving Humanity. And we started dealing with small problems people had, whether that was, overcharging of their electric bills or utility bills or, small issues, but we were able to help them. And, and then I started writing in newspaper. I started interacting with social issues, bigger organizations. And then I was in 12th grade when I started interacting with a much bigger countrywide social organization, which was trying to bring a change. Hence, and they didn't even have a youth organization. So, on my suggestion, they started a youth organization. And when you give a suggestion, you have to also execute. So, I was able to then develop about 100,000 students organization from my college through all the way to engineering universities days, my undergrad days. So all that taught me how to really do more than one thing at a time. You could be still a great student while you are doing something good for the humanity, or managing a business, or being a social entrepreneur, or business entrepreneur. So I did all that. And then, of course, I got opportunity to travel all around the globe and end up working for a global company, where I set up even facilities all around the globe. And then, fortunately, I was able to, work in the consumer electronics, consumer industrial, raw material, commodities, healthcare, medical devices, I mean, you name it. I was fortunate enough to work in many different industries, and then many different departments I was able to manage, from IT to global operations, to developing supply chain, purchasing, commodities, and then also sales and customer relation management. So I was fortunate enough to work in different industries and different operations. And then I developed a global leadership workshop where I was able to then, whatever I learned, share with cross functional teams, because I happen to have education in engineering as well as in business management, both from UMass and actually from UMass, MIT, and in Harvard Business Schools. And I was able to combine my experience and my educational background. And I thought that one big thing is missing is basically a communication in cross-functional teams. So that's the reason I started a cross-functional team leadership training workshop. So in the upcoming podcast, we will talk about those, in detail, and some of the best business practices I developed and I was able to utilize and, benefit from, and I'll share that with you. But here, I just wanted to share my personal, story or upbringing, to basically then give you an encouragement to share your story, because every story is unique. And the garden is more beautiful with different color flowers than one one color flower. No doubt rose is beautiful, but if you only have roses, it becomes very monotonous. So you really need to be more colorful so the garden look beautiful. So we need more stories. So I encourage you, if you like to share your story, your life lesson, your business learnings, your personal learnings, and you want to come on my podcast, please send me a DM, in my inbox, and I'd love to bring you on. So here are the 5 things which we are going to dwell further upon in subsequent podcasts. But today I'm just going to share these 5 things which I was able to learn and utilize over and over in different teams, different industries, in different verticals, and in totally different industry. I mean, I also was fortunate enough to go from retail to global manufacturing to global supply chain, and then to start my own real estate business, and now into the senior living. And I must tell you that in all these areas, in all these verticals, there are certain best practices which you could really utilize and benefit from in every single industry. So one of the thing is that clearly defining the challenge and realizing the hidden potential for opportunities. See, what happens is that a lot of time we do not understand what truly the problem we are trying to solve. And we just jump into issues and we try to solve the issues without understanding the depth of the problem or the root causes. Because honestly, if we slice and dice the problem itself and understand it real well, then it is just like you have a pile of rubble and you're removing all the rubble and you find lots and lots of gems under. So problems are just like rubbles, and you just need to understand that rubble, you know, put things apart, and maybe have like a 5S operation. I mean, all of my those friends who have gone through lean systems, they understand what 5S is. You run the 5S process, and then you basically understand the problem very, very well. Now, when the problem is defined, trust me, going through this rubble, you are actually going to find not only solution but challenges, opportunities which are hidden under challenges. So the number one thing is that you clearly define the challenge and realize the hidden potential for opportunities. That's the number one thing. And that will work in any industry, any task you go. after. And the next thing is effective multi-tier communication. So first of all, having the effective communication not just with your own team, but with all the teams from the front end to the back end. What is the front end? That is also another thing which we need to understand, that you need to clearly define the front end and the back end. And in my eyes, front end really is the customer focused end where the order comes in, and then back end is where order get fulfilled, like the purchasing and logistics and what have you. So you need to make sure that whatever promises you have made with the customer, you must disseminate those promises, those conditions all the way to the back end. And not only internally to the cross functional team, but also externally with your supply base. So you understand, imagine if the front end team has given a promise of 90 days payment terms, and that is something they didn't even feel appropriate to give that information all the way to the back end. What happens? That your back end is setting up 30-day terms and you are getting paid in 90 days. That means you have 60 days of lost cash, and that's only if you have a zero production time. Of course, you have a production time as well, you have a holding time as well. If you add all that up, that means you have a very big cash cycle. So, but if you communicated well and you have the right mandate in your teams, and the teams are, teams have clear goals, and they are incentivized on zero cash cycle, then you are past the cash cycle. This is the negative cash cycle. I have seen going from a negative 120 days cash cycle to positive 30, positive 60 days cash cycle. I mean, take example of Walmart. Walmart is at the pinnacle of positive cash cycle. They actually pay their suppliers in 120 plus days, and they get paid right away. So they have positive cash cycle. And you could have that too, depending on the industry, but more importantly, depending on your communication. You must be able to communicate whatever you have promised. And it's not only the cash cycle, it's the fill rate, it's the quality, it's the packaging, it's everything. So you must be able to communicate that what promises you have made. And then not just communicate in an informal way, build a protocol and a platform so that your communication is effective and it's documented. I mean, nowadays there are lots and lots of software tools out there, and I'm sure that more could be made. AI could be utilized where you basically build this platform, and that platform has a memory, and then that help you actually interact with the business partners much better, and people come and go in the companies, but this whole database is always there, and that database can help you build upon the successes you already have with your customer and with your internal team. And then the next thing is really uh, developing an internal benchmark. When And that is one thing which is very, very unique, and you may find it very funny, and you may find it that is not very realistic goal, but honestly, this is one single thing which has really, really helped me, and that is whenever I go to negotiate any deal, I develop an internal benchmark. That's the habit I developed very early on in life, and then that continued, and then I help my teams to learn that skill, that you develop an internal benchmark, that you have to if you have to produce that subassembly or a product or a service internally which you are trying to get externally from third party vendors, how much would it cost you? So you need to understand that industry, their rate, their materials, and then you should be able to develop your own internal benchmark. And once you do that, your interaction with your partners, your third party vendors, is much more as an educational, very intellectual level, much more cognitive level instead of just doing tactical negotiation or strategic negotiation. I call it 3D, three-dimensional negotiation, where you build the benchmark and now that is your technical side. So your entire relationship, your strategy, your tactics are based on the technical data. And that is itself is a big subject. And if you want to really know more about three-dimensional negotiation, I had a podcast a few days ago, which is already on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can look into that, or you can look into my YouTube channel. We are going to further dwell into these things and actually, slice and dice each single business practice and give you more information and more examples. But today, I just want to give you my building blocks, are my uh, some of the best practices which I use often. So I thought I give you today that how everybody's story is unique and how your story help you build your strategy. And then the next one is really uh, culminating network brand value. See, that's another very important concept. Network brand. So you have your own brand, and what does brand do? Brand create a loyalty, and you can get more for your product. Isn't it true that you could be buying the same detergent, but when you are buying a detergent which has a brand name, that actually may not be the best detergent, but it gets sold in the market for more money, because that's a brand loyalty does. It really help you increase your bottom line, but it also help you keep the loyalty and keep your production going, your sales as well as your profit margins are high. But what I'm talking about is not just the brand value at the front end to the customer, but I'm also talking about taking this brand value and helping your supply base understand the value and the benefit of that brand. It could be in terms of volume, because if your brand is strong, you have a more volume and you can offer more volume. And then if you have a brand and they're working with you, then their value is a lot more because they could show those logos. So that's just only one line. I'm talking about network brand. Now imagine if you take your brand, not only you take your brand from the front end to the back end to your supply base, but also you combine that brand and create a collaboration and make your whole cluster of your supply base. And every single member of your supply base could really benefit from that brand. And imagine that volume, and they're increasing their value. Now when you increase their value, they increase their subs value, and hence everybody is increasing value. The cost will be lower, the volume will be higher, the quality will be better, the fill rate will be better, the cash cycle will be better. So all that you can achieve with understanding the brand, the value of the brand at the back end, and then taking that brand at the back end, just like you can get more for your product at the front end with your brand, you can get more for your dollar at the back end, with your brand. But you gotta really utilize many big companies even they don't understand and utilize the value of their brand, and they do not brand themselves at the back end. So that's where start with the communication internally. When people understand that who they are, I mean, a buyer is a buyer at Motorola, a buyer at Nokia, a buyer at Eli Lilly, a buyer at Baxter, Abbott. They're all buyers. They just go from one industry to another industry. But if they understand who they are buying from, and if they understand who they are, what their real value is, what their real brand value is, if they understand, and that is what the leadership workshop I developed, and I was able to communicate that. And sometime you are a third party, but you're working with a bigger brand, and you can take advantage of that brand. So we will go further into those case studies in our subsequent podcast. But right now, I just want to throw this idea that was one of the best business practice, which was unique, and that helped me, in not only in my supply chain job, but also in my real estate job, also in my social network, also in my early days. So these bricks, they are maybe shaped different, but the same bricks. Okay. And then the last for today is highlight and minimize inefficiencies. So I was talking about lean. Lean doesn't mean that you really, become mean. Lean means not only, your benefit is somebody else drawback, or somebody has to really take on their chin. No. Lean really means that you are taking the inefficiencies out from the system, and that truly expand the pie. The pie is not fixed. You heard that all the time. The pie is not fixed. The pie is not fixed. The pie is not fixed because you are taking inefficiencies out. It look like that the cost is lower, so it means somebody's going to gain, somebody's going to lose. Not necessarily. If you take inefficiencies out of the system. And how do you take those inefficiencies? With the communication, like I told you, with building the internal benchmark, with better understanding, and and also defining the problem, because you may be solving this problem, whereas the problem is only this much, and there may be other opportunities hidden under the problem. So it's very important that we use all these best practices, like the layers on the brick. It's a Lego, and each one is helping each other. And so if we really use them properly and build a system, uh, and train individuals, open their mind, it will not only help them do their job better, become more efficient, but also I've seen this effect. It becomes a lifestyle, and it actually help people. They change the mindset, and now they become lean and more effective in their personal life. They learn how to better utilize time, how to not take no for an answer, how to not have a muda, and how to not waste time in understanding the value of time. And that really, all that uniqueness come to you through your whole life story, is really going together and building these blocks. And now this entire building is lean, is effective, it's stronger, it has a long-term effect, and it's helping the entire network. So that's really I want to share with you today. In the subsequent podcast, I will love to share your unique stories, because every story is unique, and every unique story should be heard and should be learned from. And hope you benefit from it, and hope you share your story. Please feel free to DM me. Until next time, have a blessed day.